spending and raising taxes? And what are the challenges for the central banks in achieving a resilient recovery? The World Debate, now on BBC World, chaired by Nick Gowing.
Welcome from me, Nick Gowing, to Washington. This is the US Federal Reserve, home to the US dollar. In central banks like this around the world, the global economy is under new intense scrutiny. World economic activity is slowing again. The impact of dramatic measures over the past 2 years seems to be wearing off in a worrying way. Most countries' economies are now technically out of recession, but recovery is uneven and it's fragile. And crucially, the growth seen so far has not been strong enough to deliver new jobs for the 200 million people globally who don't have one. What options do governments face now? Austerity measures and cut public spending, or pumping even more money, yet more fiscal stimulus as it's called? These are vital questions for all of us and for this BBC World Debate. Stimulate or consolidate? How to secure a global recovery? You join us here at the annual meeting of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. The IMF is the global financial organization representing 187 countries. Its stated mission to maintain stability and prevent crises in the international monetary and economic system. It has never been more needed than now. Well, joining me for this world debate, Joseph Stiglitz, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, professor at Columbia University, a former senior vice president and chief economist of the World Bank. Christina Roma, until a month ago, chair of the Council of Economic Advisers to President Obama. Professor Roma is still on the Economic Recovery Advisory Board. She's now back at the University of California at Berkeley. Her research expertise is on the Great Depression in the US in the 1930s. George Papaconstantinou, Finance Minister of Greece, one of the hottest seats in the current global crisis, in charge of managing the draconian cutbacks to restabilize the Greek economy in 4 years or less. Dominique Strauss-Kahn, the managing director of the International Monetary Fund. And Zhou Zhaochuan, who is governor of China's central bank in Beijing. Ladies and gentlemen, your panel for this BBC World Debate. So, stimulate or consolidate, spend or cut. Minister Papaconstantinou, have you had any second thoughts about this very tough medicine you are applying in Greece?
No second thoughts, because there was no other choice. The answer to your question, of course, is a classic economist answer, which is it depends. For a country like ours...
Can we get clarity in the next 50 minutes?
I think perhaps we could with this panel. For a country like ours, there's no other choice than to consolidate as we're doing. The markets were completely closed on us. Growth depends on investment. Investment depends on financing. Financing depends on market access. We had no market access. Therefore, confidence needs to return, and for that, we need to put our fiscal house in order, and that's what we're doing.
Professor Stiglitz, you're a great critic of these kind of measures. Do you accept that what Greece is doing is beginning to work?
Well, I think, as he said, they had no choice. But the U.S. does have a choice. We have access to the markets. We can borrow at short-term 0, long-term 2.5%. And therefore, for us, because we have a choice, there is no choice. We ought to be stimulating the other way we know won't work.
But to be clear, you've always said that this kind of policy is, quote, short-sighted.
Well, for a country like Greece, when you have no choice, you have to... they are caught between a rock and a hard place, and I think they made a reasonable decision.
Christina Roma.
I actually agree completely that Greece had no choice, and it's an important step that they've taken. I think where I'd come down is that countries that do have a choice have an obligation to be helping countries that don't. We can be growing faster, and that's going to be good for the world economy and for the countries that are struggling. To answer the question about what should we do in the United States, I think I agree with Joe. We need to stimulate more, but we also need to consolidate. We need to have a long-term plan for getting our deficit under control. That'd make your stimulus work better now.
Well, let's pick up on the detail of that in a moment. Dr. Zhou, the view from Beijing, spend or cut, stimulate or consolidate?
In China, we have quite a large fiscal stimulus package. And in China, public opinion largely support stimulus that's for economic recovery. But we know that different countries have a different percentage of debt to GDP ratio. We read very carefully about Greece situation. I think that this is a correct decision for Greece with a relatively high debt to GDP ratio now to consolidate. It's very highly related to the public confidence. If public confidence depends on the extent of consolidation, I think this is a good choice.
Dominique Strauss-Kahn, is there a simple answer to this question as you look at so many economies around the world? Spend or cut?
It depends upon two things. Where, and different countries deserve different policy, and they're absolutely both right. They had no choice, or they made the good choice. At the same time, other countries having some margin of maneuver should stimulate more. That's the difference across countries. Then you have the difference in time. Immediately, we need to be sure that the recovery will not stall. In the medium term, we need to have consolidation. And the difference is also a difference in the delay you give to yourself. Short term, some have no choice, they have to consolidate. Some may do something, they have to do it. And in the medium term, everybody has to come back to a more sustainable fiscal situation.
Let's be clear, Minister. Do you believe that you have done more than apply what your Prime Minister called a haircut, that you've actually gone to the roots of the massive catastrophe facing your country?
Let's not use the word haircut, because it brings... We don't believe in haircuts. But what we're doing is much more than fiscal consolidation. If we were simply cutting expenditure and increasing taxes, we wouldn't be doing our job. What we're doing is attempting some serious structural reforms, which will transform the economy and the way even the society works.
Have you averted catastrophe? Have you averted bankruptcy?
Yes, we have, both. And we're on a path which is sustainable if we stick to it, and we are going to.
What they're doing very boldly, and I think we have to praise the government likely to do something like that. And the Prime Minister is saying, as Georges Papaconstantinou say, I may not be re-elected, that's not the point. That's good for the country, and that's what he's doing.
Let's check, Minister. Do you, as a politician, fear with what you're doing that you might not be re-elected as a result of what you're doing at the moment?
I really believe in that, and I hope that Alberto Alesina from Harvard is right. He's saying that if you do fiscal consolidation the right way and you change your economy, in the end, you can also win elections, because we're not out to lose the elections.
Joe Stiglitz, you, though, are very much against the principle of this. You call it a disaster. You say concentrating on the deficit in this way is a disaster. It's short-sighted. You've used many other descriptions as well. Would you concede, though, that this can work?
Well, it can work for them. The question is, it depends on the circumstances of the country. And one of the points I was trying to make in terms of short-sightedness, no one will look at a firm's balance sheet and look just at the liabilities. You want to look at the assets. So we've been talking about consolidation, but the real question, and this is where Greece is doing the right thing, it's not only cutting your budget, it's what you're doing and how you're spending your money. So if you are spending money on investments, it's strengthening the economy. One of the advantages that the United States has is that we have not invested in the public sector for a couple of decades enough. So we have a lot of high return investments. We can borrow very cheap and make those investments. And the result of that is that we will have higher output today and higher output in the future, more tax revenue today and more tax revenue in the future. And in terms of our fiscal position, in the long run, we will be better.
Dr. Zhou, your Prime Minister was in Greece a few days ago, praising Greece for austerity, but you're also praising the United States for what it's doing with stimulus. Is there a clarity in Beijing as to what should be done?
For Greece, I think, support that they have a fiscal consolidation program. For United States, we are not very sure, because by reading this, the debt to GDP ratio is also relatively high, but it seems that you can still manage to have a medium-term consolidation program. So we are very carefully to comment the other country. But we know ourselves that for China, that debt to GDP ratio is relatively low, so we have rooms for exercise proactive fiscal policy.
Let's look at the United States. Christina Roma.
The policies we took absolutely were essential for stopping what was the coming of a second Great Depression. But as we saw with today's unemployment numbers, it's still at 9.6%. We still are in the middle of the crisis, and absolutely the economy needs more help, both monetary and fiscal, to try to get this unemployment rate down.
But for those who don't have to carry policy responsibilities as all of you do, what about what you said when you went into the White House? You predicted that by Q4, this time, this year, you'd probably have 7% unemployment. And literally just before we started this debate, the confirmation came out of 9.6%. What has gone wrong? Why has it not worked?
I think, first of all, it has worked. I think the key thing is the economy was in a much bigger free fall than certainly I think any of us understood, than private sector forecasters understood, so that really all that's happened is a deterioration in the baseline. The trajectory we were headed on turned out to be far worse. I think one of the things I remember very vividly early in our discussions, the question,